Hello folks, and welcome to Linux for Seniors. Hopefully you will subscribe. None of my videos are under 2 minutes, and I tried to explain a lot of this kind of stuff in less technical jargon, hence my videos are a little bit longer than most. Anyways, all my videos will have chapters if you hit stop on your player, and you'll also see them below, and they're kind of like a timeline. So I encourage that you subscribe to Linux for Seniors. I have currently my project I started in February, and I'm up to 60 videos. My previous channel had about 450 videos. I do encourage that you go check my YouTube site out and click the About section about, interesting information about myself and why I'm doing this project, or videos I should say. So today's video is going to be about basic file copying, pasting, and also about compressing from USB sticks from your hard drive and vice versa. I'll just show you several different ways and show you some tips and tricks as I move. So again, this is made for new users to Linux, whether you're a senior or less of a senior, in other words, a younger person. It doesn't really matter. If you're new to Zorin, Linux is for everyone. But as a senior myself, I can appreciate someone else trying to do these kind of videos out there, because I know that if I were to start any project, that getting some help from someone is always a little bit better to deal with stuff. So again, hopefully you'll enjoy these videos, and I will now continue. So this is Zorin. We're going to open up the file manager for Zorin, and my username is tman. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is resizing icons. So you can do the zoom in and out, and you can do it my way. So what am I doing here? I'm holding down my control key with my left hand and holding it and depressing it while using my computer mouse scroll wheel to scroll up and down to resize these on the fly. Alright, so get it to a comfortable size. And I'm using a dark theme today. Hopefully, I'm going to switch this up. I think you'll probably agree this is probably too bright if I switch it to a light theme. Yeah, it's pretty bright. So that's why I chose that. Alright, we're going to talk about manipulating files. In other words, copy, pasting, even compressing. And then we have a device. What's a device in Linux? Well, anything from an internal hard drive, external hard drive, or USB stick. Well, and today I'm just going to talk about the USB stick. That's the most common way that people transfer files from one machine to another, or from one operating system to another. I'm going to talk about the importance of what these things should be formatted, even if you're doing it from Microsoft to Zorin, or from an Apple Mac to Zorin, or vice versa. In other words, a common method that all three of these computers can use to basically copy and paste files. I'll talk about that toward the end, but for right now we're going to deal with something simple. So I'm going to open up my home folder. Again, my username is tman. I'm going to open up documents, and I can resize these again on the fly using my little trick. So hopefully that's a good size for you. So there are several different things we need to think about, and again, this video is made basically for folks that are just starting to use Zorin. You may know a little bit about computers, or maybe you are fairly new to computers even. So in either case, I'm going to show you several different ways on how to copy and paste files, and also possibly cut and paste, in other words, transferring. So let's first deal with just the regular copy and paste. So you can click on a single file, right click, and hit copy, and then go look for that USB stick and hit paste. That's pretty simple. I'm going to draw a box and hit delete. You'll see weird things like that I do. I just find it convenient. You can also highlight and hit the delete key, but I like dragging stuff to activate them. So speaking of, so we can have two different methods of selecting files. So I'm going to click once, hold down my control key with my left hand, and click again while still holding the control key. Still holding the control key, I click the third and fourth, and then I changed my mind, and I'm still holding the control key. I'm going to release that one. Now I just have these guys. Doesn't matter which one I right click on. Right click on any one of these things and hit copy, and then click where you're going to put it. USB stick in this case. And right click on the screen and hit paste. There is commands up here for doing this also. I'll show those in a second. There's also the copy and paste commands, and they do have shortcuts. So you can see the Control C and the V here. And those also, if you're an ex-Microsoft user, those are the same. All right, so I'm going to draw a box around these guys. I could also individually go and click, hold the Control key, click, click, and click, or I can use Control A. What does Control A do? Under Edit, you'll see Select All, Control A. That's also available for your Microsoft machines. It's the same command. So I'm just going to use my method. And it doesn't matter how I do it. I'm just clicking and dragging. I can just draw a small line across there. And that's sometimes helpful. And I'm going to hit delete. They're all going to the trash can. And now it's clean. So I could also use the arrow key to go back and forth between the USB stick and my folder. If that confuses you, then I'll click on these things. All right. So can I use, out of all this mess, I can individually select stuff, or I can multi-select. In other words, draw a box and then change my mind about that last one and pull it back. And right click and copy. I can also select stuff out of order. So if I do that, and so just to let you see what's in that one, it's just some JPEGs, a wallpaper in other words, and some screenshots. Some screenshots that I did before I started making, changing my panel bars and stuff. Always a good idea. Anyways, just a folder of screenshots and some files. And that's a valid text file in Linux. It doesn't have an extension, but it's definitely a text file. Anyways, so I am going to click the photo test and hold my Control key down and select a couple of more files. I'll do the cabbage and I'll do that PDF. So that means folder and 2 files. I release the Control key, right click and hit copy. Click my USB stick and hit paste. So all I'm doing is copying these things from my folder to the USB stick. Okay, the originals are still here. You can see that photo test and that's still here. Okay, hopefully that was clear. Draw a box around these 3 and delete them again. So I've got a clean surface to work with. So this time I'm just going to go through this route. So what if I wanted all the files? I have 2 choices. If all the files and folders were within reach, I could just draw a box around all of them to select them. There's another method though, using this command here. You can also click on that or use the keyboard command, Control A. I'm going to use Control A, holding the Control key, hitting A. Okay, and then I can right click on any of these and hit copy and click it over here and hit paste. It should take about maybe 15 seconds. All depends on how fast your USB stick and how many files you're transferring and how big they are. So speaking of, now that you can see that I did this all at once, I'm going to draw a box and delete them again. Really abusing this USB stick. So let's talk about that for a second while it's deleting. What if you got a USB stick that's almost full? You've got one of those little tiny ones that are 4 gigabytes maybe, and you're trying to copy, say, 5 gigabytes of the files over there. And you've got a real problem there, because now you need to do either you've got to copy the files in 2 paths. In other words, you copy some, transfer the files, come back and erase the disk, and then erase the USB stick, or delete the files, in other words, then put some more. Well, how about if we do this a little bit smart? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to compress things. Now whether you compress a single file or multiple files, it doesn't matter. I'll show all the methods. So I'm going to do this one first, this PDF of this calendar. Click it once, right click, and create archive. It's compression. So it takes the name of the file here, and it's really long. So what I'm going to do is actually delete that and give it a proper name. I'll just call that one test1. The next thing is, because I left that in this position the last time, I am going to click it and talk about these different file formats. The way it compresses thing, I'm still waiting for the end. So let me actually move this up in the air a little bit further, or even just do it this way. Maybe it'll make it easier. So .7z is a fairly modern type of compression. Not all of your operating systems support that unless they have the tools. Most of your Linux machines do. However, some of your Microsoft machines may not. And you're trying to share files with Microsoft or a Mac. So you have to have something there that can uncompress a .7z. What is the most common with all three operating systems that's been around a long time? That's .zip. That one there has been around a long time. So my file manager is still open, so let me grab that window and put it on top of here again. I'll try to put it on top of here again. And there we go. So one more time, what I'm going to do is I'm taking that file and I'm compressing it with the name test1 using .zip, and I'm saving it to the same location just to make it simple. Okay, there are other options, but I'm just going to use the simple stuff today. And then I'm going to hit create. And that creates the compressed file from that. It's just a single file currently. You can see it in there. Now, I would never recommend extracting a file you just compressed inside of the same folder, because it'll complain that there's a duplicate. This will be, if you're wanting to extract it right away, you more likely will need to create another folder and then put that in there and then extract it, if you wanted to do it that way. Okay, even if I try to pull it out of here, it's still going to complain. It's a duplicate file. All right, let's close that. So that's a single file. So I'm going to get rid of that. Or do I want to put it on the USB stick? Well, I'm going to do one a little bit better. I could drag it over to the USB stick, and you're going, well, wait a minute, aren't you doing right click and yes, but we're going to do two windows starting right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to resize this original box to something manageable. Doesn't have to be a perfect size. I'm going to drag it to the side, and now I'm going to talk about doing two windows. Click. I could do a tab, but it gets confusing to some folks. So I'm going to do window. Control N. Produces another window. They're currently identical. You can resize these to your heart's content. More importantly, you can also resize the icons independently. They are still the same file manager. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave this one in my documents selection, and I'm going to click over here to the USB stick. You'll probably understand why I'm doing this in less than 10 seconds. Now what I can do is make copies directly from my home folders, in this case documents, into my USB stick rather easily. That's one. And I will grab the owl and throw him in there at the same time. I'll grab the folder and do the same. This is probably the easiest way to teach this. And this is a really effective method. Okay, and a lot of you folks that have been doing some of this kind of file transfer stuff in other operating systems, you'll find that is similar in here. Okay, so again, this is a basic video. So now I'm going to delete all three. And some of you folks have never done this. So I'm going to move all those to the trash. I'm still waiting for the system to respond. All right, so we can do a couple of things here. So I can select all or drag a box around all of them at the same time and right click on any one of these things and create an archive. And it takes the name of the folder. So we're going to change that up and call it something different. I'll call it test3. We're going to do a .zip first and create the .zip file, and it will crunch all of these things down, and then I'm going to take that file and I'm going to drag it over to here, which makes a copy. It does not move the file. Okay, I'm still waiting for it. So if I meant to actually take it and physically move it, I would more likely want to use the cut method. So let's do an example of that. So I'm going to delete that. So I'm going to right click on this test3 zip and do a cut. Click in here and do a paste. So there's that example. So it's just going to remove it from here and send it to the USB stick. So now I'm going to do a Control A instead of drawing a box, which selects everything. I could still use my method of clicking and dragging to select everything. Okay, or I could use the Control A. And just keep in mind, if you see a scroll bar, there'd be more files down somewhere. So sometimes resizing these things may help. So I'm going to use Control A. And I'm going to right click on any of these things. And I'll do Create Archive, because we're running out of space on the USB stick. That's why I'm doing all this. But this time I'm going to pick a different way of compressing, the .7z. Again, you have to have, if you're using this on another machine, such as a Microsoft Windows and Mac, they have to have a way to uncompress this. So sometimes your old Microsoft machines don't have that unless you've already downloaded that. We're going to change the name. So we're going to call this one Test 4. You can name these things anything. And create. So it's going to create it in here. So what I'm going to do again is right click and do I want to copy? If I just want to copy it, it's just drag it over. That's it. It's done. If you're meant to cut and paste, then of course right click and use the cut. There are other methods, but I'm just showing this one. So let's compare these two. So that's that one, the .7z, and here's the zip. So we got 21 on the zip and 19 on the 7z. So this one is smaller file, in other words. So I got a little bit more compression. I compressed these more. And again, the whole reason for compressing anything for our purposes for today is just trying to squeeze information on this little USB stick, because you're possibly running out of space. So I'm going to leave those there. Can you also move files from one folder to another? You can. An example of that would be if I go to Downloads on this area and then over to here to Documents. If I wanted to, it's probably a bad example. Let me use Photos on this side and Downloads on this. This is very common. You download a piece of wallpaper. Pretend it's this guy here. Okay, again, I can resize these icons just to let you see what he looks like. I want that wallpaper I just downloaded from wherever website you downloaded it from, and I want it in Pictures quickly. So I open up two windows. You can also do a cut and paste using a single window. I'm just showing the method using two. So I'm just going to do that. And what that does is it literally cuts it out of here and pastes it over here. Because when you are using two windows inside of your own folders, when you drag files across, it is a cut and paste. It is not a copy. It's like a move. You're moving the file back and forth. We'll do the same thing with that one. I gotta resize that if you like. Drag it across. Okay, I'll click in here because it didn't refresh. Now I'm gonna move it back. So I can do this all day long. So I'll move all three of these back. And I'm going from Pictures to Downloads, not USB stick. When I go from USB stick though, that would be different. So let me grab a hold of one of these things and move it over to the USB stick. That's a copy. It did not cut and paste it. That's identical to this one right here. Clear so far? So basically, if I open up two windows and I'm dragging files and folders back and forth from like pictures into, not USB stick, sorry, from one folder to another, that's a cut and paste. Cut and paste this way, cut and paste that way. Transfer files, transfer folders. If I go from here to USB stick, it's a copy. If I click and drag, unless I do something else with my keyboard. Don't want to really give you all of the commands. I think it's easy enough or hard enough for some folks when they're learning this, just to do the basics. So again, if I'm going from my Pictures folder into a USB stick and grabbing that leaf thing here, this is a copy, not a cut and paste. Clear so far? Okay. So we can do this all day long, and I think you get a really good idea how you can do this stuff. This file manager is the same. Okay, these files are the same. So if you drag something from here to here, it will show up here to there. So if I were to click this, for instance, let me find another folder that's empty. I'll create one. I'll call that test one. And I'll open up the test one folder in my home folder, and I'll drag this across. Okay, so you agree it's in here. Now I'm going to click this one over here, and I'm going to click test 1. It's the same file manager. This confuses some people sometimes when I do this. More importantly, just got to remember, this is the same file manager. The only thing I'm doing here is resizing the icons. You have the same selections here and here. So I recap again, if you drag files from one window to another, if they're inside of your own folders, if you're just using click and drag without any extra key commands, in other words, you're not doing anything with your keyboard, clicking and dragging is normally a file cut and paste or file transfer from folder to folder. When you go from your internal folder to a device, such as an external hard drive or USB stick in this case, that is considered a copy by clicking and dragging. It's not physically moving it here. It's copying it. Same thing goes with folders. All right, now I'm going to close this thing down, and we got the USB stick still mounted. So I'm going to walk over to the Zorin menu and to settings and talk about formats for these kind of USB sticks. Now, a lot of folks will format these sticks on their Microsoft machines or Macs, for instance. Just be aware that in most cases it's more likely formatted with this file formatted right here. FAT32 is the most common one for sharing files between Zorin, Microsoft, and Mac, for instance. But I do have options. Now, if you're going to use this tool, I do have a dedicated video. This is more for a little bit of toward the medium to advanced users, but I do have a 40-minute video how to use this tool. But more importantly, I'm just going to click the gearbox, and I'm just going to show you the different ways that you can select partitions. A partition is the way that it formats the file system on the device, in this case a USB stick. This one is the most common for use with all systems and devices. FAT32 is what that stands for, File Allocation Table. Extension 4 is Linux, NTFS is for Microsoft Windows. There's also one more. Well, actually several more, but a very common one also is BTRFS. That one right there. Previous, cancel. But this will be the most common thing that you want to format your disks with, whether you do it here or whether you do it on the other machines. FAT32 is what you want to use if you want to share files between all those operating systems. Hopefully you found most of this informative, if not all, and I do encourage that you subscribe for Linux for seniors. Thank you for watching.